How's it, everybody? Welcome to the Umpire's Call. My name is Alistair, and in today's episode I will be discussing and reviewing the 2020 Formula 1 World Championship Turkish Grand Prix that was held just this past weekend in Istanbul, Turkey. Now, before we get on to only the real most important thing to talk about, which is Lewis Hamilton's equaling of his 7th Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship title, I feel that we must discuss a little bit more about the race itself and what has led up to what, in my opinion, was almost a farce of a race, to be quite frank. Just to start from the very beginning, so to let everybody know who didn't know beforehand, Turkish Grand Prix has been held in the Formula 1 World Championship for many years, and it is a very well known and famous racetrack. I particularly myself love the turn 8 left bank 4 corners that become really just 4 corners that become one turn in the racetrack itself, turning left where drivers can experience between 4 to 5 Gs when going around that corner, particularly on the next, because they can hit such unbelievably high speeds when going around corners of that nature. Now, because the track hadn't been used in Formula 1 since 2011, which is quite a long time for modern day racetracks not to be involved within the Formula 1 calendar, particularly if they've been a staple of it for many years and are built and designed primarily for motorsports such as Formula 1. Needless to say, because of the pandemic that happened, Turkey was not going to be in Formula 1's calendar this year, but I had to then Liberty Media, the FIA, well, Liberty Media, who owns Formula 1, and FIA had to then come together with the Turkish circuit, or the company that owns them, to try and have a racetrack, which they were able to do so. Fantastic result there. The problem is that, as Johnny Herbert had said during the course of the weekend, the Turkish Grand Prix seemed to have developed some bumps along the straight, which I can only imagine is due to some wear and tear, the track being used over and over again every year in different forms of motorsport. It will start to warp and form bumps as it goes along, and then they had to resurface it. Now, that is absolutely just the norm, standard, no problems there. My problem, however, is I cannot understand how Formula 1, and particularly the FIA, allowed for the company that owns the Turkish Grand Prix circuit to relay the surface and complete it with only 10 days before the race weekend. 10 days before the race weekend, the track was completely resurfaced, or they had finished at that time. I mean, how could the FIA have not said to the company that signed the contract, the day after you sign the contract, you need to then start relaying the track? Because this would have been agreed on months ago, and it doesn't take months for them to reach the circuit. It's only a few kilometers, and because there's no cars on it or any sort of traffic, and it doesn't have to adhere to the same restrictions as a normal road does, although it has its own very specific restrictions, it couldn't have taken them more than a month at the most, I believe. Maybe a little bit longer if you have to consider all the curbs and the runoff areas and all of that. But be as that may, it is a sham that they were able to allow them to only do the 10 days to spare. And the resulting effects of that was just, it was comical. Comical. It was like watching the ice capades. Because when this particular surface is relayed with all the various chemicals that they use, and I believe resins of some sort, to ensure that the particular tarmac is held together in the fashion that it is, all the chemicals that lay within the tarmac and underneath, as pressure is placed on it, it obviously is absorbed up and then spread across the track. And because the treads of the Formula 1 tyres they have no treads whatsoever, it's completely smooth, they cannot find grip at all. The only way a Formula 1 tyre achieves grip is one of two ways, and they have to be together in order for it to work. One, through heat, and the other through having previous layer rubber laid onto the track by having hundreds if not thousands of laps being driven on it in order to ensure that the new rubber and the old rubber heats up together and it can form a fantastic amount of grip, which allows the Formula 1 cars to achieve the speeds that they do. But because this track had not even had natural sunlight for long enough to try and bring up some of the oils and let them absorb away, or have other forms of motorsport race on it to draw up those chemicals and then lay new rubber, it was like watching the Muppets on ice. It was unbelievable to see how these drivers were not able to even go around corners at, quite frankly, pedestrian speeds for a Formula One car or for most motorsports without spinning. I think every single driver, at a minimum of at least once, or if not twice, spun on that racetrack, not during the race itself, but through the race weekend and, of course, qualifying itself. It was an absolute farce. And I cannot understand how on earth the FIA allowed the Turkish Grand Prix to be held when it was in that fashion. I'm sorry, it did show a great deal of skill from the drivers in being able to manage the cars the way that they did, and credit must be given to them for not having any serious accidents like we've had previously this year on racetracks that were not newly laid and that had a lot of rubber already laid onto the track from previous races in the years beforehand. But it was just, I cannot understand. I would not have allowed it, and I really think it took so much away from this racetrack. Yes, credit must be given to to Lance Stroll for getting pole position. I mean, what a performance from him in that racing point. Yes, it is basically last year's Mercedes-Benz, and quite frankly, Sergio Perez is a much better driver than Lance Stroll. I tell you, if Lance Stroll's father didn't own the racing team, he'd be out and Sergio would still be in the seat. And it's a great shame that he isn't, because Checo is a very talented driver and one who deserves to be in Formula One every year that he could realistically be in Formula One. So it's a great shame that he probably won't be around, but cross fingers we'll see Checo in Formula One in the year 2021. Getting back to the race itself, again, absolutely fantastic qualifying from Lance Stroll. Credit must be given to him. He did start off the race very well and held for a lot longer than I thought he would, and I think many people would agree with that too. But due to some inexperienced errors in judgment, in terms of how the tyres would perform, and how other teams would then negotiate those two, unfortunately fell very back. I mean, again, Sergio Perez, which we'll have a look in a moment, where he finished the race, was just, well, again, it speaks volumes of the sort of driver he is. And the Ferraris, in spite of the atrocious Formula One season they have had this year, and I've gone at length about it, and I'm not going to do it again, as I've said before, finished at a very respectable position. I was so heartbroken when I saw the last corner, or second to last corner incident from Charles Leclerc, from a driver who has barely put a foot up wrong out this entire season. He just went ahead and shot himself in the foot by making a very silly mistake. But anyway, going to the race itself, I mean, guys, again, it was just, it was so hard to watch the race because of the fact that with the track being so new, the cars not being able to do what we know they're capable of being able to achieve on a track like this, it was just so very hard to watch. Needless to say, there was a lot to be very excited about and to be inspired about from what these drivers can achieve when they are put up against the wall in this race in particular. But it was a good race, but not nearly as good as it should have been. To be honest, I don't know what happened to Valtteri Bottas. I mean, we look at he was nowhere. I cannot understand how a driver who's been so consistent for the last 2 to 3 seasons just was nowhere in this race. I don't know if it was a bad setup, if he just wasn't mentally prepared. But I mean, just to explain further, if you have a look at the start of the race and you look at Max Verstappen, the man started, went into the middle of the track, if I remember correctly, and just spun his wheels. He lost, I think, like 5 or 6 places. He was just spinning, changing gears. They couldn't lock in with the grip, and it was just shocking to begin with. But the only thing that's really worth talking about, ladies and gentlemen, has to be said, Lewis Hamilton. I mean, I don't even know how to congratulate this man. What he was able to achieve in a race in which he should not have won, realistically. He shouldn't have. He was far down the track. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it, how his team does it, but just congratulations to him. The man is a 7-time Formula One world champion. I mean, yes, he's now matched Michael Schumacher. It just goes to show how incredible Michael Schumacher's career was, which many of all Formula One fans will know only too well. But man, wow, Lewis Hamilton will go down as one of the greatest Formula One drivers in the history of Formula One. I don't even care in 100 years from now what we see going forward. This man has achieved things that I didn't think I'd see in my lifetime. I thought Michael Schumacher would be it. Hamilton would get very close, respectably, but he would never achieve it. And man, was I wrong. Oh, it is just beyond belief what he's been able to do. And credit must be given to him and to Mercedes as well for just having a team run with such efficiency, with such character, with such professionalism. And although I don't like Hamilton in some aspects of who he is as a person, I cannot fault him as a driver. I really thought that the tyre choice he made in staying out for longer was going to be his downfall. But somehow, he was able to muster up something from that car and those tyres. Oh, it was just unbelievable to watch. And although, you know, he was going on about the race and so on and so forth, and he was saying how bad it was in the beginning, particularly the track, apologies, the way he was able just to keep his focus there, get the job done, and drive a car, which I said I can't understand, because Valtteri Bottas drove such a similar car and was able to achieve what Hamilton did, but he was able to achieve it was just incredible. So I think Hamilton was down as far as 7th, if not lower on the track during the race. Got up to 1st. I mean, then to see the race results, we had Hamilton in 1st place, Sergio Perez in 2nd, Sebastian Vettel in 3rd, and then of course we had Charles Leclerc in 4th place. And I was so frustrated about Charles Leclerc, because Charles Leclerc was so quick on the track the whole race, particularly towards the end, should have finished in 2nd, went past Sergio Perez, went too fast, too quickly, slammed on his brakes, went wide, which allowed then Sergio Perez to go in 2nd, and then Sebastian Vettel, who was close behind Charles Leclerc, should have finished in 4th, landed up in 3rd. So congratulations to them. But it was just so annoying to see that Ferrari could have landed up even being 2nd and 3rd, was now 3rd and 4th. But just Lewis Hamilton, guys, I struggle to find the words to explain what this man has been able to achieve in his career, and particularly with Mercedes. It is just phenomenal, guys. Incredible, and every bit of credit and respect must be given to Lewis Hamilton for what he's been able to achieve. He will go down as one of the greatest athletes in British history. He will obviously be knighted, given the highest honours, which he deserves without doubt. In his career, he'll be remembered for all time, and if he does race next season, which is more than likely, he will, in all likelihood, get an 8th World Drivers' Championship, which is, I don't want him to see him beat Michael, I don't, but it's almost inevitable unless he decides to retire. Either that or one of the other teams, being Racing Point, Red Bull, McLaren, maybe Renault, Ferrari, I doubt it, can do something that Mercedes won't expect. But if they come out with new systems like they did this year, new innovations, forget it. They'll just win again and again and again, and it will be a little boring, to be honest. A little boring. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really do appreciate it. Please remember to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video you've seen today. Please remember to hit the subscribe button so that you'll be automatically reminded for all future videos which I'll be posting on this channel. Otherwise, guys, have a good day. Cheers.